Hold up, did Apple just accidentally leak their own iPhone 17e through a Geekbench listing? A new benchmark listing has surfaced claiming to show Apple's upcoming budget phone, complete with 10 gigs of RAM and some pretty impressive performance scores. But here's the thing, tech experts are calling this leak fishy, and for good reason. Today we're diving deep into this controversial iPhone 17e leak, breaking down why it might be fake, what we actually know about Apple's next budget phone, and the exciting news about Apple's upcoming March event. If you're considering waiting for the iPhone 17e or just love Apple rumors, you'll want to stick around for this one. Let's get into it. So first, let's talk about this Geekbench listing that's got everyone talking. The leak was first shared by a user named Avishek Yadav on X, and it shows some pretty interesting specs. According to this listing, the iPhone 17e is going to pack some serious punch under the hood. We're talking about a single-core performance score of 2,560 and a multi-core score of 8,553. The listing also suggests the phone will have 8 cores, and here's the big one: 10 gigs of RAM. That's a bump up from the 8 gigs we saw in the iPhone 16e. Now, on the surface, this sounds pretty exciting, right? More RAM in a budget iPhone sounds like exactly what we've been asking for. But here's where things start to get suspicious. The first red flag is the base frequency listed in this benchmark. The Geekbench entry shows a base frequency of 3.76 GHz. But wait, earlier leaks have suggested the iPhone 17e would use a modified version of the A19 chip. And those same leaks pointed to a base frequency of 4.26 GHz, not 3.76 GHz. That's a pretty significant difference that doesn't make sense. The second problem is even more obvious: the model name doesn't add up. This Geekbench listing shows the device as iPhone 9911. But if we look at Apple's naming pattern, the iPhone 16e uses the identifier iPhone 175. Following that logic, wouldn't the iPhone 17e be called the iPhone 18.5? iPhone 9911 seems completely random and doesn't match Apple's internal naming system at all. Then there's the motherboard name issue. The current iPhone 17 uses V57AP, and the iPhone 16e uses V59AP. But this Geekbench listing claims the iPhone 17e uses vPhone 600AP. That motherboard name looks nothing like what Apple typically uses. It's almost like someone was trying too hard to make it look fake. All of these inconsistencies together paint a pretty clear picture. This Geekbench listing is most likely fake, created by someone who didn't do their homework on Apple's naming conventions. But that doesn't mean we should ignore the iPhone 17e entirely. Let's talk about what we actually know from more reliable sources. According to earlier leaks from more credible sources, the iPhone 17e is still very much in development. One of the most exciting rumored features is the addition of MagSafe support. If this turns out to be true, it would be a huge upgrade for Apple's budget phone line. We're talking about 25-watt wireless charging speeds, which would put the iPhone 17e much closer to the flagship models in terms of charging capabilities. The camera system is also getting some attention in the rumors. Sources suggest we might see an 18 megapixels front-facing camera with center stage capabilities. Center stage is that cool feature that automatically keeps you in frame during video calls by panning and zooming the camera. Having that on a budget iPhone would be pretty impressive. Now, about the pricing, and this is where things get realistic. Most leaks suggest Apple will keep the same starting price as the iPhone 16e. That means we're looking at $599 for the base model iPhone 17e. While that's not exactly cheap, it's still significantly less than the flagship iPhone models. And if Apple does include MagSafe and better cameras, that price point starts to make more sense. But here's where things get really interesting. We might not have to wait much longer to find out what's true and what's not. Apple has just announced a special event, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. Mark Gurman from Bloomberg, who has an excellent track record with Apple leaks, had predicted new products would be announced in early March. And guess what? He was right on the money. Apple has confirmed they're holding what they're calling a special Apple experience on Wednesday, March 4th. But this isn't going to be your typical Apple event. First off, they're not even calling it an event. They're calling it an experience. Second, it's happening in 3 cities at the same time. New York at 9 a.m. Eastern, London at 2 p.m. GMT, and Shanghai at 10 p.m. This multi-city approach is completely new for Apple. It suggests they might be focusing more on hands-on demonstrations rather than just a traditional keynote presentation. The timing is also strategic. March 4th falls right in the middle of Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, one of the biggest tech trade shows of the year. While the world's tech press is focused on Android phones and other devices, Apple will be stealing the spotlight with their own announcements. It's a smart move that ensures Apple gets maximum attention. So what can we expect at this March event? The iPhone 17e is almost certainly going to be the star of the show. The timing lines up perfectly with the rumored release schedule. But that's probably not all we'll see. Rumors suggest Apple is also preparing to announce new MacBooks, updated iPads, and possibly even some new Mac displays. The MacBook rumors are particularly interesting. We're hearing about a potential 12.9-inch model that might be more affordable than current MacBook options. It could come with up to 16 gigs of RAM to support Apple Intelligence features. Of course, it would likely be more stripped down compared to the high-end MacBook Pro models, but for everyday tasks like web browsing, document editing, and media consumption, it could be perfect. Getting back to the iPhone 17e, let's talk about what this phone could mean for Apple's lineup. If the MagSafe rumors are true, it would finally bring one of the iPhone's coolest features to the budget tier. MagSafe isn't just about wireless charging, it's about the whole ecosystem of accessories. Car mounts, desk stands, wallet attachments, all of that would suddenly be available to iPhone 17e users. The rumored camera improvements would also be significant. An 18-megapixel front camera with center stage would make the iPhone 17e much more competitive for content creators and remote workers. And if Apple includes some of the computational photography features from the flagship models, the iPhone 17e could punch well above its weight class. But let's be realistic about what we probably won't get. The iPhone 17e will likely get a modified or older version of Apple's silicon. Don't expect the same camera system as the iPhone 17 Pro, and don't expect features like the dynamic island or always-on display. Apple needs to maintain clear differences between their budget and flagship models. The question is whether the iPhone 17e will offer enough value to justify waiting for it instead of just buying an iPhone 16e or even an older flagship model. If you can get MagSafe better cameras and improved performance for the same $599 price point, it might be worth the wait. But if you need a new phone right now, the current iPhone 16e is still a solid choice. Looking at the bigger picture, Apple's March event could be one of their most interesting in recent years. The multi-city format suggests they're trying something new with how they present their products. And the focus on hands-on experiences rather than just presentations could give us a better feel for how these devices actually work in real life. So here's the bottom line on that iPhone 17e Geekbench leak. While the idea of 10 gigs RAM in a budget iPhone sounds amazing, this particular leak has too many red flags to be credible. The inconsistent model names, weird motherboard identifiers, and mismatched frequencies all point to this being fake. But that doesn't mean the iPhone 17e isn't worth getting excited about. With MagSafe support, better cameras, and the same affordable price point, it could be a real game changer in Apple's budget lineup. And with Apple's March 4th event just around the corner, we won't have to wait much longer to separate fact from fiction. What do you think about this Geekbench leak? Are you planning to wait for the iPhone 17e, or are you skeptical about these budget phone rumors? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more Apple news and rumors. We'll be covering Apple's March event live, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the announcements. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.